I'm Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
And this is Fish Jelly.
C'est bon, c'est bon.
Happy Sunday.
Yeah, happy Sunday.
This weekend is DTLA Proud.
Yeah.
Which is like a pride festival intended for
denizens of downtown Los Angeles.
I guess it's all of LA, but
yeah,
trying something new, I guess. Because this is the fourth year.
Is it the fourth?
I don't know.
Oh, I've never been.
I think maybe it's the fifth year. Fourth or fifth. I think it may have started in 2017.
Oh.
But anyway.
So we're going to check it out.
Yeah. Okay. RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars, Season 6, Episode 11. The challenge was the charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent monologue, which was obviously a reference to the vagina monologues, but it took me a very long time to realize that it's an acronym for, it's C-U-N-T.
Yeah.
So the C-U-N-T monologues, which was funny to me several hours after I finished the episode. But last week, an eliminated queen was brought back. And the eliminated queen who was brought back was Eureka. So the top 5 for this episode are Trinity, Eureka, Ginger,
Raja,
and
Kylie.
And Kylie Sonique Love. I thought they all did an okay job with their monologues.
Oh, yeah.
Ginger's felt very, rehearsed.
Ginger's felt like community theater
monologue.
She was,
like she's like the most talented actor in the Colorado Springs Community Theater Group or something.
It felt very much like Tennessee Williams' Little No-Neck Monsters.
Yeah. Eureka ends up winning the challenge.
Yes.
Telling a story about shitting on herself.
Yeah.
I don't recall what Raja's was about. Kylie's was about her first time in drag and sort of relaying it to how her mom sent her to military school as a young boy to try to butch her up and ultimately became is a trans woman who does drag. Trinity's was about being catfished on Grindr slash ultimately being someone's inspiration for an HIV positive role model, which I think the essence of the story was good, but I thought her presentation was fine.
It was fine.
And the final person, who did I miss? I said Eureka. Oh, you didn't say what Raja's was about.
Yeah, I'm forgetting now too.
And then Ginger's was about her mom catching her wearing her shoes as a young boy and then thinking she's in trouble, but then her mom buys her a pair of ruby slippers.
Yeah, very cha-cha heels.
It felt a little I don't know how much of this is... It wasn't 100% nonfiction to me. I think she may have made up the story a little bit. It just didn't seem... But who cares? Doesn't matter. But Eureka lip syncs against Jada Essence Hall. There are a bunch of memes because when Jada was introduced, you know how they put their name and then who they are? They just put Jada Essence Hall Season 12. They didn't put Season 12 winner.
Oh.
So the memes are they forgot she won Season 12. But they lip synced to a Little Richard song.
Good golly, Miss Molly.
Good golly, Miss Molly. The lip sync was, it was all over the place.
I think I enjoyed listening to Trixie and Nicole Byer
talking about
we're just watching some adults dressed as clowns.
As clowns rolling around on the floor to Little Richard. The commentary about it was more entertaining than the actual lip sync. It ends up being a tie. Both Eureka and the group vote off Trinity.
Yeah.
Which I think was appropriate.
Yeah, fine. I'd love for somebody to do something drastic within the parameters of this show, of course.
Choose a front runner.
Yeah, choose somebody.
Which Naomi Smalls did when she chose Manila. That was an upset.
That was an upset, but I want it to be more of an upset that I like Ginger being.
Well, that's because we don't care for Ginger that much. But she's very talented.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Drag Race Holland. This most recent episode, they did a rusical.
Oh, God.
Cinderella, the rusical.
Which was Cinderella on hallucinogen.
It was a matchup of Little Red Riding Hood, Snow White,
Sleeping Beauty, all the Grimms.
Yes, and it was pretty adult, which I thought was funny. But yeah, I don't.
I liked the wolf, or slash Little Red Riding Hood.
I think that this cast seems to have some obvious front runners, because I think My Little Pony is clearly, and then the other one, the werewolf or Little Red Riding Hood,
who are ex-partners or whatever.
Who are ex-partners, Keita Minaj. I feel like they are obviously like one of them is going to win. It's still fun to watch, but My Little Pony is just so creative, and his drag is like on another level. I think the Countess looks great. The Countess and Reggie B. No, the Countess and Ivy Elise are in the bottom.
Yeah.
And
which, the Countess I find fascinating to watch. I hate her attitude, which I think is an act because she's uncomfortable with herself in some regard, but like very transfixing.
I agree. But after their lip sync to, I forget the song now.
It's in Vogue's.
Free Your Mind.
Free Your Mind.
Fred is like, the lip sync was bad. So we're just going to go over overall performance.
So he lays it out pretty well. Like, well, you nailed all your fashions. This is your first time lip syncing.
The Countess.
It's not good. You're going to need to do more, but you can stay. And to the other one, he's like, well.
Yeah, you did. All right, your first 2 lip syncs, but this third one, we got to send you off.
Time to go.
So I did enjoy that, but bye-bye, Ivy Elise. Oh, also, Vanessa Van Cartier, who's the trans woman, whose stated age is 41, she says.
I think she looks great, though.
She's gorgeous, but she seems more mature than that.
Yeah.
Which I think affected her performance because she plays Cinderella, and I think her energy seemed a little low. But she moves like how I would move. Like older, my body is not quite, so I'm very careful.
I'm not going to hurt my knee.
I'm not going to hurt my knee or throw out my back. That's kind of how she moved. She did well enough, but she told her story about how when she decided to transition, it was really hard, and
she lost
thought about suicide, lost all her gigs, had to become a cleaning person. So she felt like the story of Cinderella really spoke to her, but ultimately it didn't get her a win. Moving on, I said I was going to talk about the real world Las Vegas, but that feels daunting. Well, only because these people are so all over the place. So I don't know if, it would take me so long to talk about them. There are only 7 cast members.
It's okay, drag them.
No, I don't want to drag them. The main thing I wanted to talk about was what I already mentioned last week, is watching people who are in their very early 20s sort of making these bold proclamations about who they are as people is really cringy, because certainly I can relate to that. I think we all can.
Yeah.
Like feeling away when we're so young and then realizing that that's not going to get us anywhere. So some of them are frustrating. Some of them are really sad. My favorite... I think the person who comes out the best on this season is Steven. He seems the most sort of like progressive. We find out when he first joins the house, that he works at a gay bar in Arizona, I believe. And he calls out Alton, who's my least favorite cast member, for being homophobic, and tries to educate him. And even Steven's best friend happens to be gay, and brings this guy whose name I think is Gary to meet Alton to just talk to him about why it's unfair for him to have these thoughts. And then Alton aligns his homophobia with him almost being molested. So he feels like that's why he doesn't like gay men. Which I thought his story was... Yeah. Because we also learned that he, I believe it's his 2 brothers were kidnapped and murdered.
Alton's?
Yes. Okay. Something dramatic like that.
Jeez.
Yeah, when he... Yes. It's just one. It's his 9-year-old brother was kidnapped and murdered when Alton was 14.
Oh, my God.
And then, So it's... he has a sad story, but also he's so misogynistic and so hypocritical. And
well, it's also the early 2000s where it was very appropriate to, speak that way in public.
But... Not to repeat myself, but I think because I was that same age, living in Las Vegas, working in a casino at that exact time, I feel a lot of connection to it. But the one thing I did want to bring up, which will segue to the next thing, which I didn't tell you about, is There's one, many of the characters, but particularly Frank, talks about how, like, he just can't date a girl from Las Vegas because they're all so, like, this even when I lived there, this impression of, like, everyone who lives in Vegas is, like, really slutty. Fast, and they have so many options that you can't sort of tie them down. And I think it made me think about people's expectations, which segues into my next topic, which is a few nights ago we were having a conversation with two other people about like how we want to live in like a big city versus maybe going to, you know, moving away from a place like LA where one would be more comfortable, like lower cost of living, less congested. So we had that conversation. And then the next morning, I spent a couple hours on YouTube watching. There are a lot of videos from people titled Why I Left LA. And of all the videos I watched, 100% of them were people who moved to LA in their early 20s, wanting to pursue something in entertainment, or they had this fantasy of like Hollywood life, and then they leave within like 1 to 5 years. So then why did I leave LA? So most of them, they all have the same complaint, which anyone who lives here or like myself who grew up here would echo. It's overcrowded. The traffic's a nightmare. It's very expensive, and logistics make it difficult to socialize.
Yeah.
Okay. And competitive depending on your line of work. So it made me think about like thinking about the real world and expectations. I just thought, well, okay, if you did your research, which would require just a simple Google search, because all of these people whose videos I watched are still young, which means when they moved to LA, the internet existed. So I think if you do a simple search about what it's like to live in LA, it's very clear what the downsides are.
Right.
And the positives are obviously the weather, the variety in like terrain, right? So you can have beach, desert, mountain, hiking, and then of course all the stuff related to entertainment, all of the options like culinary and musical entertainment options, all that. So I wonder, what are your thoughts, like as someone who moved here in your 20s and you have made a nice life for yourself, what do you think about sort of this idea about people moving to a place like LA who should have known full well that all of these things existed and then shit on it?
Well, I mean, I think we talked about this before we actually moved to Los Angeles. And I think that we were both very adamant that there's a plan, there is an occupation that at least one of us has, because you can't depend on dreams and fantasies. And of course, there's always that expectation of what it's going to be like, and it never really felt like that. I think it was immediate that living in the city is a grind, and because I had a stable job, you know, it was doable. And I think that's why, you know, a decade on, we're still here. But yeah, I was even researching something. It's like we found our initial apartment online, and it's unreal to think, you know, we drove across the country without seeing that in person.
Yeah, we weren't able, because of time constraints, to visit first, find housing, and then move. So I just looked up someone on the interwebs, a real estate agent, who was kind enough to help us rent an apartment. I didn't even know real estate agents did that. But this gentleman helped us, and he was quite nice. So our price point was, we lived in a nice enough 2-bedroom apartment in a nicer part of Minneapolis, like a trendy part.
Loring Park.
Yeah, in a nice building. So we thought, okay, our rent here, let's say that's our budget for LA. And immediately the person's like, well, that's not going to get you very far. Like maybe a 1-bedroom. So we found something, and
It was equivalent, actually, at the time. That was 2011.
it was smaller and it wasn't as nice.
Right, yeah.
But
we were paying for a 2-bedroom for the same price as a 1-bedroom.
a nicer 2-bedroom, arguably in an equivalently nice area, right? Because WeHo is kind of like Loring Park in Minneapolis, kind of.
Sure.
So ish. So I think location wise it was comparable, but the price I think was the first sort of indication that things will be more expensive. But we already knew that. Anyway, I think setting expectations, like it just seems weird to. I guess I was thinking like the main sort of message I got from all of those videos I watched is that these people left LA because it didn't meet their expectations. But then, so I guess what I wanted to talk about was, people's expectations are wrong. And I think you could apply that to a lot of things. Relationships, employment. Like, how many people do we know who take a job like, oh, you make $40,000 a year to do this job that is like very clear what the duties are, and your commute is like 2.5 to 3 hours a day. And then 3 months in, it's like you hate it. You hate the commute, you don't like the job, you're not getting paid enough. But those three things were told to you in the interview. And then you were reminded of it again when you were offered the job. And then it's like, okay, so your expectations are off.
Well, but we also live in a world where everybody's like, you can progress, right? And I think that also we're now used to having what we want when we want it. So this process, the process of reality takes much longer. And I think, it depends on how tenacious, how passionate you are about what goals you're trying to ascribe to, or in a relationship wise, like how really committed are you to this person? Like, are you able to look past, and it's, to use a relationship with a city as a metaphor as well. Like you have to just accept that there are some major faults in moving around the city.
Well, I think what you said, like the part about like being willing, or sort of the hope or the understanding that you can grow, I think is very important.
Of course.
But so I do think, I mean, because that's kind of like hope, right? And a desire to want to do better. And I'm not implying that a lot of people don't have that, but I guess my impression of a lot of people who seem to struggle is like people just want things. They just want things.
Immediate.
I want to live in this kind of house, or I want this kind of car. And it's like, well, I don't know that like those material things are something to base a life around, but who am I to judge? But either way, if you have a goal or a dream, then you need to have a plan, right?
Yeah.
And then you need to execute that plan. And then you need to be committed to executing the plan, even when it isn't going as planned, or it's hard. And I think a lot of people miss that part. It's just like, I moved here, like, or I worked this job for 5 years. Like, how come I'm not running the joint? Like,
well, in a city like LA, where people, stereotypically come here to make it in the entertainment industry, nobody's checking for you. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of others that are very similar to you doing the same thing, and you have to get past that pessimism and past that disappointment where it's like, oh yeah, nobody's really here for me. So how much do you want it, and what do you want from it? If you want it, the fame and celebrity, then that's probably the wrong reason, and you're gonna get bored trying so hard. But if you are passionate and creative and want to do it for the craft, I think that's something else.
I would imagine that a high percentage of people don't have their dream job, that they don't do something they're super passionate about. If you do, then you're very lucky. So I think for the rest of us, there has to be a balance between what I do to make a living, to be comfortable in this world, and how I spend the rest of my time doing things that make me feel fulfilled, productive. And I think a lot of people don't know how to reconcile that. Because there has to be a give and take. Like, so getting back to like living in LA, it's like, okay, so, you could move to a city that's less expensive and be a little more comfortable. And you don't know, maybe that comfort might inspire you to pursue other things. Like if you had a little extra money, what would you do? If you had a little extra time and you weren't commuting, and it doesn't mean like leave LA. It's like, well, you could, I mean, how many people have I known who just insist on living in a certain part of LA? But it's like, for what reason?
And then you become beholden to that. Right. Yeah, and then I think you don't realize how limiting it is in the long run.
Because really it is limiting. Like, really, you could move to the Valley, let's say, or to San Gabriel, You could move somewhere that is not necessarily close to the action, but it's much more affordable. And if you're really passionate about doing something in that area, you can find your way there once a month, once a week. It's not that hard. So I think it's that sacrifice of like that maybe some people aren't willing to do because I don't know, I don't want to go on too long about this, but I think when people talk about hustling, it's like, well, to me, hustling is like you work a full-time job, and then when you get off work, then you put in the time doing something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
It's the work, it's the hours. I'm not saying everyone has to spend 20 hours a day doing something, but it's like, okay, you wanting to be an actor, so you take a part-time job at a restaurant working 3 days a week, 4 hours a day, and then you like, you know, take an acting class once a week, and you live in squalor. That's not a hustle. A hustle would be like you have a full-time job and take care of all your bills, and then you stay up late at, you know, maybe you work overnights so that you have your days free to audition. That's impressive. That shows drive. But just sort of like doing the bare minimum just to be in a space does not guarantee that anything will come of it. Like you just can't be a spectator. You just can't, you know, I know a lot of people talk about how, and I would agree, like in college, as long as you show up, you'll get through it. And that's a really poor sort of analogy for life. Like, I think that's a really poor way to look at life. Like, just showing up and waking up every day is not enough. It isn't. Like, you have to do the extra.
Yeah.
Some people are handed things, certainly, but for most of us, like, you kind of have to. And if you really enjoy doing something like writing or singing or dancing, then you should want to do that whether you're getting paid or not.
Yeah.
Whether people are reading it or watching it or listening to it, you should just want to do it. As someone who's not an artist and not creative, I can't really speak to that because I don't work for free. But I know like making YouTube videos and doing this podcast is just kind of like something that's more of like a hobby.
Sure.
So the fact that I don't get paid is not
Bothersome. Irksome.
It doesn't bother me because I'm very comfortable outside of doing this, so I'm not bothered.
Right.
So-
Well, yeah, it's I think it's the once you become tethered or beholden to something, that's when you also start to resent or hate it. And,
Right.
And I think something that brings you joy, that you need to kind of protect that joy about it somehow. At least for myself, but
So some people need to make some hard decisions, I think.
yeah, for some reason it keeps popping in my head. I know you haven't seen this movie, but it's mid-90s with Mare Winningham and Jennifer Jason Leigh. It's called Georgia. And like Mare Winningham, they're sisters, and she's this very successful singer. And all her younger sister, Jennifer Jason Leigh, wants to be is a singer as well. So she like throws herself into, you know, I'm going to be a singer, but she's terrible.
Oh, God.
Like there's no way in hell she'll be a singer. And you just watch this woman struggle through all these shows. Where it's clearly she doesn't have the skill. It's a very good performance from her, and worth a watch. But I keep thinking of that is also like maybe you have to make some tough decisions or do something adjacent, or I don't know,
Or be uncomfortable.
or be uncomfortable. Yeah,
You know?
I mean that's the other thing. Like wandering around in LA on my own a lot is like. The reaction I get is like, oh, you go out on your own, you're alone. It's like, well, yeah, because that's not uncomfortable to me. But it speaks to the terror people have of being uncomfortable.
Well, that's not what I was thinking, but I think that's a really good point. I was thinking literally, as the days go by and the older I become, I'm really focused on being comfortable. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm not comfortable, I feel like I can't focus on the other things that I need to do. So it's like, yeah, I want to be in a comfortable, I want a comfortable place to live with a comfortable bed. I want to drive a comfortable car. Like, I want to wear clothes that are comfortable. I don't want to wear clothes that are cutting off my circulation, and I don't want my feet to hurt. And, you know, like, I don't want to sit in a car for 10 hours
Yeah, but
to drive somewhere to come back 2 hours later. Like, I just don't, that doesn't suit me. And I think...
Yeah, but that's a different kind. That's like if we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like that's along the lines of the things you need to be productive and successful. Is that kind of comfort?
Sure.
I'm talking about like the kind of comfort outside of your comfort zone being how you grow as emotionally and mentally as a person.
Yes. So I think both of those things I think are very important when people think about as you know, time's not forever. Mm-hmm. Time is not forever. Next thing you know, you're 40, then 50. Mm-hmm. Then you're thinking about when am I going to sign up for my Social Security check? Mm-hmm. Well, that's how shit goes. Yeah. And then it's like, well, what kind of choices did I make that will leave me at a place when I'm old and gray thinking like, well, It's been a nice run. I did some of the things I wanted to do. I feel good about it. I guess when I'm hopefully in the euthanasia office ready to clock out, I'll feel good about like, well, I did the best I could with what I was able to do and my mental capacity. And, like, I think that would make me feel good. So when I think about being comfortable, it's like there has to be a balance. I didn't want to live all of my 20s and 30s on the fucking struggle bus to then end up like broke without a pot to piss in.
Or a rent-controlled West Hollywood apartment that you can never leave.
No shade to everyone in rent-controlled housing, but some people choose that life. Like, I'm just not going to leave. And it's like, well, maybe.
I get it. But then it's like, you're really, I don't know, that's very Sisyphean. Well, because it doesn't need to be.
Because you hear people talking like, okay, I live in a rent-controlled apartment in WeHo with 2 other people. And then their goal is like, I want a house in the Hollywood Hills.
That's not gonna happen.
That's a huge. You might want to consider like maybe move out of the city, build some equity in some other property. Then maybe one day you can move back if you hit it big. I don't know. I just think that they're baby steps to the door, girl. Yeah, baby steps to the door. But we need to move on. You wanted to talk about
first
Candyman.
We can talk about that first.
So Candyman. Some of the critique we got on our Candyman YouTube video about. For some reason, there were comments, which some of them I deleted because they're mean and nasty and irrelevant and erroneous, that we only liked it because it was black. Mm-hmm. And we didn't say that at all.
No.
The only thing I said was, I love seeing like lit black people in movies, and I would love to see more movies with black people in them. That's what I said. I liked Candyman well enough because I thought it was a fun interpretation of a horror classic.
But I noticed this trend of I think there are, for lack of a better word, trolls out there that is kind of the toxicity they put out for anything anything black that receives praise, because
you were also mentioning our review of US versus Billie Holiday.
Yeah, where we were very cool on / negative, except outside of Andra Day's performance, because it's not a good movie. And I remember seeing a lot of vitriol and some like people calling Joseph whitewashed because he agreed with me that it wasn't good. And so I don't know, if you were to take the time and look at the track record, neither of us do that. But there are, for products directed by women or people of color, there's kind of this unsaid thing that I've noticed amongst critics that are afraid to be very honest or truthful, unless that you also are of that identity critiquing the film, which I think does a disservice to the film. And I think there is something to be said about meeting something where it is. Like, certainly not every Tyler Perry movie is a 1-star movie, and they're a good writer or a good critic is able to articulate, how they are grading, etc. But yes, I find that kind of bullshit upsetting, that, if this was a white cast, you would have given it a bad review. No, I would not. My opinion is my opinion, and I'm not being paid for it, and I liked the film.
And that makes me think, like, people want to apply their logic whenever it makes sense for them, because then you get people who love the movie Sweet Girl with Jason Momoa. Ugh. And it's like a lot of the comments that I saw were about like, well, my mom died of cancer or blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Good. I mean, not good, but sorry.
But what does that have to do with this shitty ass movie with a ridiculous story?
Absolutely
nothing.
That's like saying like,
but by that logic, then I should be allowed to like a movie with black people because I'm black. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I think it's like people just want to be mad.
They want to be mad. It's just kind of like being gay, how we're supposed to also pussyfoot around like terrible queer films. And it's like Steve McQueen recently said, like, there needs to be terrible black films as well. There needs to be movies that aren't as good as quality, because we need the content out there. That's how people also grow and experience things. But we need to be honest about what's good and what's not. And I have received the worst feedback, or people have like made a point to single me out on Facebook or Instagram. Usually older white gay men that didn't like how I critiqued something that was gay. Like I'm violating, like I'm a traitor to my to my community. And it's like, well, I'm being honest.
I don't like to give advice, but I would give advice like stop searching. Like, people people just want to be mad. Stop looking for things that will upset you and don't feel the need to validate your own thoughts. If you watched a movie and you liked it, then be comfortable with that. If you like something, then just be comfortable in that. Don't seek out validation. Which will ultimately lead to you hearing things that are contrary to your beliefs, and then you get upset. And it's like, if you're going to spend all that time searching the internet for information, then research things that matter. Look up shit that matters. Learn about like anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, history, public or political science. Like, learn about those things before you get mad because someone didn't like a movie that stars the man from Aquaman who you really like. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You liking Aquaman doesn't mean that you have to like a shitty drama thriller that he was in. Like, it makes no sense. But if there's nothing else you want to talk about, we can move on to movies you saw this past week.
Oh, but briefly before that, Ed Asner died.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, he's 91.
Well, I need to look up who Ed Asner is.
You know who Ed Asner is? He's from the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Did he do those commercials for diabetes?
That's Wilford Brimley.
Okay, no, wait, I don't know who this is.
Oh my God. He's got like 416 credits. He was on a big series in the 70s called Lou Grant.
I know the Mary Tyler Moore Show, but I don't recall him in it.
Oh yeah, he was on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Because he looks like a couple of people.
You liked he does the voice of the old man in Up.
That's him?
Yeah.
Okay, well, he was old, right?
He was old, but he was in like 400 plus things. He was...
Well, he had a good run, and I'm sure when he was on his deathbed, he felt like he made some good choices and he was happy with his life.
He probably did.
Or probably not.
I don't know. But
he died today.
My memory of him, my first memory of Ed Asner, who I knew as a child, was because on VHS I had this 1989 animated version of Snow White where Irene Cara is the voice of Snow White. And he is Scowl the Owl. That's my first memories of Ed Asner.
Okay. All right. Moving on. You're going to talk about movies you watched this past week that you didn't review.
Yeah. I mean, there were a few things that I thought... I still hope we get to Mosquito State before I leave for Venice. But
well, I'll let you talk about them because I have to use the bathroom. But you go ahead and you start with The Man Who Surprised Everyone. I'll be back quickly. I won't wash my hands. Go on. The Man Who Surprised Everyone.
Well, obviously, since I'm going to Venice, I always try to do a little preparation for filmmakers whose previous works I'm not familiar with. So Alexei Chupov and Natasha Marikovla have a film in the Venice competition. Captain Kolganov Escaped. I'm probably butchering that title. But their previous film got a lot of attention, The Man Who Surprised Everyone. It's from 2018, which really is kind of a daring film. It's about a man, he's a Siberian state forest ranger who has some kind of terminal cancer, a tumor. He has 2 months to live, and in response to that, he decides to adopt the identity of a woman and still stay at home with his family. The local community ostracizes him and beats him and punishes him. But by the time he goes back to the doctor's office, it seems the tumor has miraculously cleared up by him kind of, it's suggesting that maybe he was always a trans woman, and in his last 2 months of life, he finally embraced himself. And I think working on a metaphorical level as well, I think the film is saying a lot of powerful things, especially coming from Russia. I can't believe it got made. So I definitely recommend that. Also for Venice Prep, I watched Eric Matti's On the Job 2013 film that played in the Director's Fortnight at Cannes, which I was watching last night when you walked in, because the sequel is playing in Venice competition, so I felt like it's kind of necessary. That was so-so, but based on a true story about these lifers in Filipino prisons who are allowed...
Oh, I did see that. Clips of it, yeah.
They're allowed to leave. Basically, they're assassinating people for this criminal underbelly. So they go kill people.
Like Suicide Squad. No.
No, because they don't... Oh
Well,
yeah, yes, but they have to go back to jail. So
That's
it's like
right, that's right.
But so they get plucked out of prison, kind of like Suicide Squad. Go have to kill these people, get to spend a little time with their family, and then get put back in, like as an exchange. Which also is strangely reminds me of Persephone in Greek mythology. Anyhow, so I'm looking forward to that sequel. I totally bungled coverage for Fantasia Film Festival, but in accordance to that, last week I did watch. For whatever reason, they restored Shunji Iwai's 1998 movie April Story. I think because they also were showing his latest film. But he's a Japanese filmmaker I really like. All About Lily Shushu is probably his biggest film, most notable film to date, but he did a film in 2016 called A Bride for Rip Van Winkle that I really liked. But April Story is from 1998, and it's basically about this girl that lives on this island that goes to some college she randomly picks because she heard about it and has trouble making friends in the city. It reminded me of So Young Kim's very similar feeling film, The Days Between, I think was the title of that. Anyhow, there was that. And also, as a palate cleanser, because of all this cramming of screeners for Venice and TIFF, I watched Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions, which I'd never seen because it wasn't allowed the year that came out, with a very handsome Scott Bakula and a very untouched Famke Janssen. But otherwise, that movie was hard to sit through. Yeah, so that's films that for somehow I got to fit those in between everything else I watched this week. And I finished Frank Herbert's Dune and Elena Ferrante's The Lost Daughter in anticipation of Venice.
Projects of interest. Witches of Eastwick.
Yes. Witches of Eastwick is going to get a remake from director Nina Thyberg, whose debut, Pleasure, about a young woman that moves, I think, from Sweden to the Valley to be a porn star, which is very kind of gritty and disturbing.
Did I see that?
I think you might have walked in when I had it. It was at Sundance this past year, so I watched it at home.
Was it in English?
It was in English.
Oh.
You might have wandered.
Maybe there was another movie I watched with you where there's a girl who comes to the Valley to be a porn star.
Not Starlet, the Sean Baker movie.
I think that was it.
With Dree Hemingway?
I don't know.
That's years ago, though.
I don't remember.
Anyway, this was in January. So Nina Thyberg's going to do Witches of Eastwick, which, the George Miller film, which is based on John Updike's novel, is a favorite, but was not, I don't think, particularly well received when it came out in '87, with Cher and Susan Sarandon and Michelle Pfeiffer and Veronica Cartwright and Richard Jenkins and, of course, Jack Nicholson. So I think what I'm most excited to see is who these witches are going to be.
Oh, they haven't announced who the witches are.
No, but, anyhow, so that I'm excited about. Alice Winocour, French director, has finally announced her fourth film. There have been rumblings about it. It was supposed to film in Paris last summer, but because of COVID, they couldn't get the female star attached.
What is it called?
Revoir Paris.
Oh.
But the female star, which has been confirmed, is Nicole Kidman.
Oh, Masha.
Yeah,
okay.
My God. She's playing a journalist, I believe, who survives a suicide terrorist attack and in Paris and then comes back 6 months later to kind of pick up the pieces. And then lastly, another project I'm excited about. I've talked about him before. Bertrand Mandico, who's filmed The Wild Boys I loved and After Blue, which just played at Locarno, has already announced a new project, which is a female rereading of Conan the Barbarian.
Oh.
So that sounds fascinating to me.
Interesting.
Yes. So yeah, that's that.
Okay, so for this week, we continued the party from last week where one of us chose a mystery movie to watch. So it's my turn.
Yep, so I had no idea.
So I chose Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone because I've never seen a Harry Potter film. Certainly didn't read the books. I know you've read a couple books and seen a couple movies.
I've read the first two books and saw the first two movies, which both came out while I was in high school, and I thought I was too old to really think they were for me then, and I never continued.
Well, in 2000, this came out in 2001.
Yep, so it's 20 years old this year.
So yeah, I was like 23 years old when this movie came out. So I'm sure I thought it was for kids, and that's why I wasn't interested. And over the years, there are so many of them that, like other sort of franchises and TV series, it just gets to a point where it feels daunting to even start.
Yes.
And I think that's why I haven't ever thought to watch a Harry Potter movie. But I did today.
You did today, and I was surprised you picked it because it's like 2.5 hours.
It is, it's long.
It's very long.
It is long. That is for sure. Okay. Obviously, I'm not going to review this movie because, I mean, this universe has... There's no point. There's no point.
There's a lot going on.
And there's so much going on, I couldn't even begin to tell you what the movie's about. I mean, from what I understand, Harry Potter is this boy who was born to, like, some witches and a witch and a wizard, and I don't understand why he had to be... Oh, his parents died.
His parents died, well...
But I don't understand why he's, like, the chosen one.
Because they fought Voldemort, and he was been marked by that wand with the...
He has a scar on his forehead. Yes. Okay.
So it's kind of like... It's very similar to, you know, Star Wars or Dune even, where there's this kind of prophesied child that's going to come and defeat these evil forces.
And he goes to Hogwarts, which seems more like a reality competition show than like an actual school where they're learning. But
yeah, the staff watching this.
This staff is garbage.
They're just like, are you paying attention to what these children, these magical children, are
these
doing?
Students safe? They don't even seem safe.
Well, during the Quidditch game, it's like somebody's gonna die.
So I watched it. My overall impression was that it's pretty magical. But clearly a big budget movie that was well done, like production wise. So I'm sure in 2001, watching it in a theater was quite the experience. And for people who read the books, I can imagine. I kind of wanted to talk about, before I even talk about this movie, is I think I have an aversion to like YA novels.
Yeah.
And adults who read them. Like whole ass adults.
Sure.
Like ladies my age who are like, oh, I just finished the Hunger Games, and it's like, oh, okay.
Because it's funny, one of my notes while we were watching this was it's trying, it feels like it has the scope of Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, but oftentimes feels a little bit more Twilight-y in some passages.
This movie,
but much better.
Oh yes, this movie is much better than I thought. Twilight's not YA, but even that is like I'm not going to shit on Twilight because I think
go ahead, shit on
if it appeals to you, that's great. And the Harry Potter, just from the first movie, it seems like a very rich universe. But my aversion to stories like this and why I probably would never read like a science fiction novel is I can't keep track of like the characters and the...
You'd be surprised. I just finished Dune. I thought it was very... it clips right along.
Oh, I'm sure they're great reads. It's just for my taste. Like, I don't want to learn all these new words. And things that aren't real.
Sure.
It's one thing to read a book and like learn things that are actually real, right? Learn about history and locations.
Like what's the new word I learned yesterday? Gibosity.
Things like that appeal to me. Like learning appeals to me. Mm-hmm. But to me, learning about something that's not real, it doesn't appeal to me. Like, I don't want to put energy...
Sure, but there's a certain... what happens sometimes is that they become part of the zeitgeist and that they take on meaning.
Oh, sure, because, like, even just watching it this morning, I realized that, like, I've heard people say, like, yeah, are you a Slytherin or
a Hufflepuff.
A Hufflepuff, or what's the one?
Gryffindor.
Gryffindor. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, no, it's become...
So it's like a class in the school.
Well, it becomes part of the lexicon, right?
It does, and I think for that reason it has importance. Like these, obviously Harry Potter is important to popular culture, but yeah, learning about, like having to learn all these things that are not real.
Sure.
Like words and
sure
science things that aren't, it just seems like more than my simple brain can handle sometimes. Not that I don't enjoy sci-fi, but...
Sure, I think what you're talking about is more aligned with fantasy.
Fantasy, because, sci-fi, like I love outer space type stuff, and because, it's based in our understanding of physics and...
Right. Science,
whatever, but...
you are a robot.
I don't have much notes after watching it because there's so much going on. I only have 5 notes. One is when they first bring the baby whoever those two people are who bring the baby to the house.
Richard Harris and Maggie Smith.
I was like, did they steal this baby? And then the family he lives with, which we find out are his actual family.
Yeah, his
I
aunt.
just thought they were like, because they treated him so poorly.
I wrote down it's very Cinderella.
Yeah, then I'm like, these people must have just been burdened with taking care of this boy, and they're calling him the cousin, but really he's just this strange baby who was dropped off. Mm-hmm. But no, these are his kinfolk.
Oh yeah,
and they treat him so poorly.
Which I do like seeing Fiona Shaw, who's nice and bitchy.
I thought the first part of the movie was the best part, like seeing Harry Potter be treated poorly and then him kind of getting free from that. I did enjoy. I think Daniel Radcliffe, I don't think he's magical. I don't think that he shines in this role. He's just a cute kid.
He's also really young. He's like 12.
As an adult, I do like him. I find him fascinating. But as an 11-year-old character, I thought he was okay. I thought he and the redhead boy,
Rupert Grint,
I like those two better than the girl, Hermione.
Yeah, Emma Watson.
I didn't care for her.
That
wig threw me off. Her acting, because like you mentioned as we were watching it, because I said this like halfway through, I think the two boys seem more natural, but then you commented they're just acting like boys.
Yeah.
And so it feels...
They're putting that bitchy, persnickety personality on.
Yeah, and she's not able to pull it off that well. But Alan Rickman...
I love Alan Rickman.
Oh my God. That shit...
It's so over the top.
It is so over the top.
Every time he walks in the room, I keep saying, drama.
Oh my God. That fucking black ass wig.
I mean, the wig looks terrible.
And the looks, he's serving looks.
But he's so good.
Yeah, it's very over the top.
It is, but I love seeing him.
And so, since we've mentioned before and people seem to know what we're talking about, the YouTube web series Got to Be Real. I think it's season 2, episode 1, where they split the divas into the two houses. A big part of that episode is this movie where Maggie Smith and that hat and
Professor McGonagall
signing houses. So I actually thought that was a really fun scene. And that hat was telling everyone's business.
Oh yeah. It was like, shut up.
Yeah, can we keep this discreet?
God,
I would do this in front of everyone. I
also thought Daniel Radcliffe at this age reminded me. He looked like he'd be Safi's child from Ab Fab.
Oh sure, yeah. The staff is garbage.
Yes.
I just don't understand. They're being trusted to educate these children, and I would assume protect them, and they are doing neither.
No, when the kids try to go warn Maggie Smith, somebody's going to steal the Sorcerer's Stone, and she's just like,
don't you worry about that.
It's well guarded, go away.
Yeah.
Don't you want to hear what they have to say?
Or when the troll is in the building.
Yeah, okay.
And then he's like, stop, vacate the building in an orderly fashion. And then it's the two kids have to destroy the troll. Where were these staff members?
Yeah, where were the adults? Yeah.
Oh my God, just garbage.
I also wrote down that I think Hermione has the same hair. She looks like she'd be Hagrid's kid.
Hagrid.
Robbie
yeah.
And
then Hagrid can't keep a secret.
Yeah, it's just
I shouldn't have said that. You just need to shut up, sir.
Although I do like Robbie Coltrane, but
okay.
So it was the first two were directed by Chris Columbus.
I'm not familiar with that person.
Yes, you are, because throughout the 1990s, he kind of had the market on darker themed adult film or family films like Home Alone.
Oh, he directed Home Alone?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But his first one was Adventures in Babysitting in '87. I think Home Alone
with Christina Applegate?
Elizabeth Shue. I don't know if Christina Applegate's in Adventures in Babysitting.
I don't know.
She's in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep. Home Alone, he did only... Mrs. Doubtfire. I think Only But Lonely. 9 Months. Stepmom with Julia and Susan Sarandon.
Well, he did a good job with this movie because I think knowing that there are so many books and such a big universe, I think as someone who knows nothing about Harry Potter, I do feel like I'm primed to watch the next one. As in, the film he made makes me curious about where these kids are going. And and knowing that they get older is appealing to me.
Sure.
Just seeing their journey, their
progression.
journey. But will I watch them in a timely manner? I don't think so.
Well, I think it was after the second one that I kind of gave up. But to me, Alfonso Cuarón directed the third one, which I think many say is the best one, The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Well, I looked up which are the best Harry Potter movies, and I do think what you just said is number one.
Yeah. So Alfonso Cuarón, who did Gravity and
yes, on
Mama Tambien and
on Collider.com they've ranked the best, and number one is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Mm-hmm. And then the one I just watched, the first one, is ranked number 5.
Oh, okay. So Mike Newell directed one, and then the rest were directed by David Yates.
Okay. Starting... So I had to pay for this one. Mm-hmm. It used to be on HBO Max, and then because of licensing stuff before, I think Warner... who owns HBO Max? I don't know. Licensing stuff, the Harry Potter universe has bounced around different platforms before... the parent company who owns it decided to start their own streaming platform. So I believe starting September 1st, so like in 2 days, all of the movies will be available on HBO Max.
Oh, there we go.
Which we do have access to. So I think...
I'd be curious. I mean, I feel...
I will watch them.
I should have seen them.
I don't know that I'm sure I'll mention them as we watch them like on the podcast, but I would be interested to watch them.
Sure.
Whenever there's like free time around here, but...
the score by John Williams, who, scored everything from Star Wars to Indiana Jones, it does feel very much like that kind of a score. To me, it felt like it was doing a lot of heavy lifting. I also, J.K. Rowling, everybody knows the legend of how she came to write Harry Potter and all of this.
Oh, I don't know that.
On the back of a napkin, she scribbled it out because she was like a poor working class mother.
Oh, and then she got all her money and then has a problem with trans people.
Yep.
Oh, actually, I was going to mention that because I was trying to research, before I gave Amazon Prime that $3.99 about her transphobia. Mm-hmm. And I was reading things, and then she wrote this, long-ass essay that she put on her website in response to all the criticism. Mm-hmm. And I think... I'm not going to say she's not transphobic. I think she's just misinformed. Mm-hmm. Because she's aligning... I think the most problematic thing that I read, she said, was she's aligning, protecting women, women being safe in public restrooms, and then some man who decides he wants to be a woman to go to the bathroom. And it's I don't think that... I feel like aligning those things is very hurtful.
Yes.
Because a lot of trans people spend so much of their life, in anguish because they feel like... You know what I mean? It's just to reduce someone's anguish of wanting to be their authentic selves to some creep who would put on I mean, you're almost making it one of those corny 80s
Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, where it's someone slaps on a bad wig and then goes to the bathroom to rape some woman. It's that's a really, really, really shitty thing to say.
So yeah, we can never have all gender bathrooms because we're afraid cis women might get raped. It also goes back.
Well, all gender bathrooms don't mean have one big ass trough everyone shits in. It means why not have individual restrooms, or many places like the fucking Draft House downtown, mm-hmm. where it's the sinks are outside. We all can wash our hands together, and then you have individual toilets. I don't think we're asking for
It goes back to the sanctity of usually the white woman and the myth of the black male rapist, and even we have to keep these women. These women are so pure that they can't. They have to be segregated even in the bathroom. It's no, we can exactly just all have private stalls. It doesn't matter who has what going on down there when they are just trying to use the bathroom.
Well, women and safety has always been an issue. Right? So I don't want to minimize that. But I think when we talk about public situations where we could make these things safe,
yes,
it's a really stupid argument.
It is a stupid argument.
What are you talking about? Some truck stop restroom in the middle of nowhere? I don't feel comfortable using those. As a man, I don't feel comfortable going into some restroom.
Part of the reason that that's true about the dangers women have to face, like walking alone at night, blah blah blah. Because as a culture, we accept and don't really punish men that do those things. We accept that we have normalized that behavior just is going to happen, and maybe that is where we need to be focusing our anger and our energy instead of saying, well, trans people just can't ever.
She also seems like the type of cis woman who thinks that a trans woman is taking away something from her womanhood. And it's like...
Well, because a trans woman is not trying to rape you. So what you're trying to protect the cis women from in their bathroom is ostensibly going to happen anyway if some man is trying to get in there to rape you.
Well, she also made comments about people who menstruate, and I was trying to read more, and I didn't quite understand what was like trying to be said, so I don't want to talk about that. But again, I think she just seems misinformed, and because she is a very sort of wealthy, successful person, maybe she feels like she can be steadfast in her thoughts because it's like, well, who's going to tell me shit? And she's right. I mean, people should be allowed to think what they think, and if they don't want to sort of be enlightened or educated, then it is what it is.
It's disappointing because...
But it's disappointing.
You know, heretofore, like, wasn't she the first billionaire that fell out of billionaire status?
Because of her philanthropy?
Yeah, like, so...
So I don't think she's a shit person. I just think that maybe she is stubborn and is refusing to sort of see the error in her comment. But I don't want to get into that because I'm not informed enough to say that much, except that I think this series of books and movies mean a lot to a lot of people, and I don't think they should be erased.
Oh yeah, no, I don't agree with that kind of sentiment either, because eventually she might come around. I don't know.
Yeah, and then also when you say, just like a lot of things, like Bill Cosby or The Cosby Show has such a important part of my childhood. And it's like, so you want me to erase that? Mm-hmm. That show inspired me to want to go to college. Mm-hmm. The spinoff with Denise going to Hillman, A Different World, really made me want to become educated. It's like you're telling me to sort of erase all that positivity over accusations that ultimately have now this man is no longer in prison because whatever. Anyway, we don't have any time left, so you can wrap it up.
Oh, I wanted to say, when we finally see Voldemort, though, you look like Billy Whitelaw to me.
Oh, I'd have to look that person up.
She's Mrs. Baylock from The Omen, for one thing. And I was also surprised at how heavily this world relies on, or is taken from, Greek mythology, because the three-headed dog guarding the Sorcerer's Stone, that's Cerberus. And then there's a whole Argus thing with the 100 eyes. There's stuff going on there that I'm like, oh, this doesn't seem entirely...
Original?
Yeah.
Well,
But I didn't know if we were going to bring up her trans comments, but all I had to close was a quote from Christine Jorgensen.
Good old Christine Jorgensen, which that TV movie they did about her is on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's worth watching.
Isn't it? Is it Wyler that directed that? No, Irving Rapper directed that, I believe, who in the 40s did a few pretty decent Bette Davis movies.
It's entertaining, but not in a good way. I mean... Well, it handles the subject, I guess, the best it could for that time. But
you said, because I don't know that I've seen that. You said it didn't feel exploitative.
It didn't. From what I recall, I recall thinking that for when it was made, this seems like the person who did it did the best they could. But it's just funny to watch because they cast this sort of like, I mean, he's obviously like a very like good-looking sort of man with soft features to then play her and sort of the stuff. Anyway, if anyone's interested in her, I would recommend going on YouTube and watching that movie. But anyway, continue with her quote.
Oh, just a very simple statement. Nature made a mistake, and I have corrected it.
Oh, well, boom. Bye-bye.
Bye.